Another thing I recommend doing is you take the phone, you break it in half. Another thing I recommend doing is you take the phone, you break it in half. Another thing I recommend doing is you take the phone, you break it in half. Burner phone, widely regarded to as the only phone you actually own. Yes, it's true. And today I'm going to be showing you lots of phones, lots of cool stuff. Buckle up. It's definitely a video worth a few minutes of your time so you can learn how burner phones work and how you can utilize these type of phones. Got one in this bag today, this RFID bag. We're going to break it down step by step so you can stay 100% anonymous, private, and secure and take back some of your freedom in Operation the only phone you'll ever own. All right, so most of you have smartphones like this, iPhone 12 Pro or whatever the latest iPhone, great for business, horrible for privacy. I have a phone system I've talked about in depth. I've done a few videos on burner phones, and I recommend you watch my very first video on burner phones because I go step by step on how you can get an anonymous burner phone. You could use a prepaid card like this. It's a prepaid debit card that I use all the time. And you can also use, of course, cash. Okay, so you can use cash to get the phone. Now, I'm a big proponent of aging your burner phones, and I talk about that at great length in that video, which is why I recommend you watch that video as well. But in this one, we're going to talk about where that video left off. We're going to talk about what to do with your burner phones, how to use them 100% private, anonymous, and secure, and how to discard them. And I think that's one of the most important things. So we're going to work this backwards. We're going to start with how to discard them, and then we're going to talk about how you can use them and what you can do with them, okay? So typically I'll have them in an RFID bag. Now, really important for any phone, whether it's a smartphone or any other phone, you can put it in airplane mode, but airplane mode only does so much. We're talking GPS, triangulation, you've got the towers, you've got a lot of phones nowadays that will have a whole bunch of tracking features baked in, and that's not even to mention the mountain of apps you probably have. So an RFID bag and a, when you're looking at signal-proof bags, some people will start with, tinfoil, then they'll go all the way up to blackout bags. Okay, so if we're looking at like EMP, right, we're looking at different levels of protection. What are we trying to fight against? Okay, that's really important. Now, I've got some recommendations on privacyxproject.com on what I use, so you can check that out, or you can find the best one that works for you. So if I open this up, I typically have one or two things in here. Sometimes I'll carry chargers, and I'll always carry a phone of some sort. Now, this happens to be a classic flip phone. These are great for burner phones, but so are these, so are a lot of these, because what happens is you use them, you discard them. But it's not like in the movie where you throw them out the window. No, there's a little bit more to it. So if I was going to discard this phone, what would I do? Let's say I used it for a call. Let's say I was making an important business call, or I was doing something that I did not want to be traced or tracked. I do not advocate breaking the law, but there's a lot of reasons why you want your privacy, especially as an entrepreneur or just an American. You have the right to privacy. Privacy is a right, and we believe it at Privacy X. And that's why I teach you guys how to be private anonymous. I'm not teaching you how to break the law. I don't recommend you break the law, but I do recommend you take back some of your privacy. So if I were to use this phone, what would I do? Well, in the movies, they would throw it out the window. It would conveniently fall apart on the ground, and there you go. This is a treasure trove of information. So first thing I would do is if I have a burner phone, I would never download any apps. I would never log into any accounts. There would never be any identifying information except for who I called, and I would delete the call logs. That would delete the stuff on the phone. What I typically will do is I'll delete everything first, then I'll take the added step of doing a factory reset. Okay, so it deletes it as a factory reset. It makes the device almost useless, although there are some supercomputers that can get in there and get some information. Also, the information is still going to be with the phone company. Now, if you can trace this phone to you, there's options. Now, the best option would be to disintegrate the thing, right? But on the go, that's not always an option. So a lot of people say, what would I do? Well, I always keep these with me at all times. In my wallet and in my EDC bag, I'll have some of these alcohol wipes. Now, you could buy boxes of them at Costco or other stores, which is what I do, and they last forever. I keep a couple of these and a couple of Band-Aids in my wallet at all time. Now, I have kids, so having a few alcohol wipes and Band-Aids is good if you have kids. The Band-Aids are for something really clever, which I'm going to show you in another video. The alcohol wipes, beyond cuts and scrapes, are good for fingerprints, right? So what you can do is you can take these, you can open them up, and we're going to utilize these alcohol wipes. I'm going to show you exactly my system right now, which is really important, really cheap, really effective, something you can do. Now again, why would you want to get rid of your fingerprints? You know, in the world of guilty until proven innocent, you don't want to leave a trace behind. So first thing I'm going to do is you can take this phone, and on these type of phones, unlike flagships, you can actually take off the back. So what I typically do is I'll take off the back, I will take out the battery, okay? Now, I don't recommend ever having added storage in a burner phone. You can put an SD card in here, but I don't recommend it. But you are going to need to pull the SIM card. Now, I've already pulled the SIM card, but you're going to need to pull the SIM card. So the first thing I'll do, open up, back, battery, SIM, set down. Then what I'll typically do is I'll put on my gloves. Now, I spend most of my time in Vegas and Texas and Arizona and California. So the reality is, having gloves need to be explained. Now, lucky for me, I ride motorcycles, and these are motorcycle gloves. So that's pretty standard. If you live in colder climate, that is as well. But ultimately, some gloves. The other reason I like these, because explaining why you have latex gloves with you is kind of weird, right? If you're out there, if I put these on, nobody's going to question why I wear motorcycle gloves, because motorcycle, right? But if you have latex gloves, kind of weird, right? So that kind of explains that. So think things ahead through perception. It looks like you're getting ready to commit a crime if you're out there with motorcycle gloves. Now, typically you wouldn't be out there wiping down a phone either, but it just breaks things down on thinking ahead while you have things. And then what I'll do is I'll take this and I'll literally just wipe the phone down, okay? So I will, after I've wiped it internally, I will wipe it physically so there's nothing on it. Now, the thing is, this can place you in a location. So the reason wiping it down is so important when you discard everything. And basically, I'm the kind of person who discards almost everything. I shred everything, burn everything, discard everything, because I've known too many people who've had issues because of something they once had. And so you can wipe these down. Another thing I recommend doing is you take the phone, you break it in half. Another thing I recommend doing is you take the phone, you break it in half. Okay? Now, does this do any more damage? Does this, does this add anything that really kind of makes it so someone can't get in there and get the access to memory? No, it doesn't. But it makes it virtually worthless to the average person who would potentially find this. Already it's a flip phone, then it's broken, people are going to disregard it. So I'll wipe it down before I disregard it, right? So using gloves is important so you don't add fingerprints. Also, the great thing about leather gloves like these is there is technology now, believe it or not, that can forget your fingerprints. They could get average sizing of fingers and do finger matches. Now the technology is still, so we say, kind of new. It's kind of like that technology that reads the veins in your palm, heavily used in China and other Asian countries right now. There's crazy technology out there. Of course, facial recognition is off the chain at this point. So just kind of thinking ahead when you use a burner phone. Now, working backwards, why would I do this? Why would I have a phone that I go through this amount of trouble? Now, this is if I'm basically traveling on business. I always take a handful of phones. I usually take like half a dozen phones. And ultimately what you can do is you can burn through them. Now, why would you want to do this? Well, I'm obviously not going to be disintegrating stuff. If I'm here, if I'm at my shop, I've got the tools and equipment to do virtually anything, right? I can literally make pretty much anything disappear. I can disintegrate the thing. I could drill through it. I could, cut through it. I could turn it into dust if I wanted to. But if I'm traveling and I'm at the Holiday Inn, right, or I'm at the Embassy Suites, wherever I stay, right, if I'm at the hotel, what am I to do? Well, breaking it down and disregarding it, typically disregarding it in a garbage can, and usually a couple of different garbage cans is good. Throw it in the garbage. I'm not an advocate of throwing phones on the street like you see in every movie. Now, granted, it's a movie. It's fake. Not a good idea. Also, if somebody was chasing you like in all these movies and you did that, yes, they would stop being able to track your geolocation, but that would be a gold mine if they got a hold of that phone. Right? There's a lot of other data they can get from that especially if you're talking about these high-level hackers or even these alphabet agencies for sure. So it's something to keep in mind because it's almost like this geo map of everything you do, everything you say, and every place you go. And now we're moving into a world where you've got to explain everything based on interpretation, which is ridiculous. Also, I'm not even worried about the now. I'm young enough that if I live a full life, I'll be alive long enough for the next several decades, 40, 50 years, actually more than that, potentially, depending upon how long I live, that I'm also right now taking into consideration future technology. Some of the technologies I'm talking about really aren't that big of a deal today, but what about in 2040, right? What about, could you imagine the tech we're gonna have in 2040? And I'll still be kicking around. I mean, in 2040, I won't be young, but I won't be old, right? I'll still be out there doing my thing. In 2040, I'll be what, like, in my 50s, 50? I don't know. I'll be, I'll still be old enough to where I'll want to be private and anonymous, and it's going to be much harder to do then, which is why I'm taking these steps now, and it's why I always take these steps now. It's why I always compartmentalize everything now, because now you still have a chance, right? The internet has taken a lot of people's privacy and security and identity, and the internet has caused hundreds of millions of cases of identity theft and has databases that store everything about you. But there's still a little bit you can do about it now, right? There's still ways to get out of some of these databases. You can do misinformation, disinformation. You can compartmentalize the apps you use, the things you use, like I talk about here on Privacy X. But if you don't start taking action soon, eventually it's going to be too late. Once we get to AI and quantum computing in our daily lives, it's too late. And that's coming like by 2030. Which is why I tell you guys it's important to do this now, because we've only got a handful of years. Within the next decade, starting to become private, if you weren't in the past, is going to be virtually impossible. And that's a problem that a lot of people are going to run into. And the problem with most people is they don't care about privacy now because it's only kind of a problem. But when it becomes a giant problem, it's always too late. And for some reason, humans, we have this bad tendency to always wait until it's too late. So if whatever it is you're doing, the government and these big corporations, especially these big corporations, don't have the right to all this data, but they've taken it in the name of convenience, and you've allowed them. You've signed on the dotted line. Literally, legally, you have. You can't blame the corporations. You have nobody to blame but yourself. A lot of people have a tendency to blame these big companies. I don't blame any of them. You did it, not them. They put it out there and you were dumb enough to take it. If you take these services, you need to understand what you're getting. You have become a product. And you've become a product for probably hundreds, if not thousands of companies. And no, you don't have, it's not poor you. You've went out there and you've used their services for free, knowing that you're the product. You have nobody to blame but yourself. And so if you don't start taking back some of your privacy and anonymity now, if you don't start taking back some of your freedom now, soon you won't have any. So that's why burner phones are so important. People always ask me, Cody, I'm not that important. I don't have nothing to hide. It's not about, why does everyone associate privacy with hiding? Why is it always about hiding? It's not about hiding. It's about the freedoms to do you, to be you. It's kind of like, what's next? Are we all going to live in glass houses? Are we all, it's like what is crossing? I've just always wondered, what is crossing the line for some of these people, especially in America? Some of the most just up in the clouds people in the world are in America. I think we've had it too good for too long. People are fighting about the dumbest stuff. I don't understand what it's going to take for people to cross the line for Americans to actually care. Like the amount of liberties these companies take is out of this world, and people are still like, well, no, it's not that bad. It's not that bad. Is it hot in here? It's not that hot in here. I would prefer it be 70 degrees with AC, but it's only 96. It's not that bad. I don't get what it's going to take. So I recommend you take action now with your privacy, and a burner phone is a great option if you're doing business calls. Now, do you have to do it after every call, like I've talked about in the extreme burner phone videos? No. I burn this phone every 3 months. So every 3 months, so it's compartmentalized, right? Different people I'm talking to, different businesses, different business deals, different geolocations. I also have phones that stay in bags that I only turn on when I'm in Vegas or I'm in Texas or when I'm in wherever, right? And so The phone never knows where home is or where my office is. The phones don't, like, when I play poker, I have a specific phone for poker. It's the only phone I use. So when I'm playing poker, so when I'm not, I turn the phone off, boom, gone, disappear, ghost, right? And you need to look at these things. You need to compartmentalize things, because if you don't, it's a problem. And I will tell you, if you're married, you might want to let your wife, like, if you've got a phone like at work or something, and you've got a wife and she's suspicious, as she probably would be, then, you know, let her know what you're doing. Obviously, I don't want to hear about guys like, my wife found my third phone. But, you know, it's not about, it's not a rap video with girls on the side. It's about your privacy. It's about being able to compartmentalize things in your life. And I get emails every day of people dealing with identity theft, people who deal with women dealing with stalkers. Email me every day. Identity theft, it's sad because I can't respond to half. I get so many people. Cody, how do I disappear? Cody, how do I do? But you've waited till it's too late. Now I can help you try to rebuild, but why? I mean, you should have thought of this a lot. I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. So I'm trying to teach people how to think of this now before it's too late. Or even if it's not too late, before you've caused a catastrophic event in your life. Anyway, appreciate you guys checking out this video. If you haven't already, make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Got new videos coming up every single day on topics like this one. Appreciate you checking this out. Go all in everything you do. Remember, your privacy is a right, and it's something you need to protect. And I'll see you guys in the next video.